Okay, if everybody would be so kind to please take your seats. Yeah, please go ahead, sit down. So I know it was a short and sweet coffee break, but we have plenty to cover today. Thank you everybody for joining us back again in the Silver Hall. And I have to commend Daniela for her silver outfit because it very much fits to the theme. We've heard in the morning user perspectives and government user needs on GovSatcom and programs and capabilities, continuing to our overarching theme on delivering on user needs and the evolution of program and capabilities. Without further ado, the session on European GNSS services facing new challenges. I'll be keen to hear what those are. And welcome to stage our moderator, Daniela Dobreva-Nielsen, Director for Space Applications. Daniela, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Leah. Good morning, everybody. It's a really pleasure to welcome you in the Silver Hall. My marketing gig here with my jacket actually worked. I think it's a good start. It's a really pleasure to have you here for the high-level GNSS session during the conference. And we started with a very ambitious speech of our commissioner and also Josef Aschbacher. I believe that this conference will contribute significantly on the discussion on how we can deliver on our space ambition, all of us together. And I have the pleasure to welcome my panelists on the high-level GNSS session. And before we start and introduce the panel, I just want to mention that the words resilience, security, autonomy, robustness, autonomy, all these words will be repeated quite a lot during the conference. And we will not be an exception here on this panel, but we will concentrate on satellite navigation on the European GNSS and, of course, Galileo and everything that potentially is coming with that. And we will look into the political, industrial, and institutional aspects of the discussion. I would like to welcome my panelists. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome. Christoph Gründler, member of the European Parliament, and also member of the Committee of Industry, Research and Energy at the European Parliament. Thank you very much for being with us, Christoph. We have Paul Flamand, who is the Deputy Director of Space Policy, Satellite Navigation and Earth Observation at DG DEFIS, the European Commission. Welcome, Paul. Juan Benedicto is the Director of Navigation of ESA. Very nice to have you with us. We also have Rolf Kozlowski, the Managing Director of the DLR GFR, the ground segment for Galileo. And Miguel Romay, the General Manager Navigation Solutions of GMV. And we have a special guest from very, very far away today. Edison, it's an enormous pleasure to have you with us. And before we start, I just want to set the scene also for the organizational setting of our panel. We thought to inspire you, in addition to all the gentlemen's contributions during this panel, by inviting Edison to join us from far Caribbean. And we were just laughing, you didn't bring a little bit sun and fresh wind from the beach. But Edison will have an inspirational speech towards the end of our panel, and then we will discuss again. So thank you very much for being patient with our discussions for now, and really great to have you with us. So, last comment before we start with Christoph. We have one serious challenge today on this panel, only one challenge, everything else we are under control, the time, because we have so many things to talk about with this gentleman, and we have only a bit less than 1 hour. So if you allow me, and you're all warned, I will be a bit tough on the timing, and also will support the discussion further on during the conference. So please excuse my bluntness to make a sign for your answers. So, Christoph, first of all, as I mentioned, it's really a pleasure to have you here with us today, and We are living in a rapidly changing world, and we have to remind ourselves that the geopolitical situation is not only in personal but also professional challenge for us. However, Galileo strengthens Europe's technological sovereignty and continues to grow in improving services. So what are the most pressing challenges that you see for the European GNSS from a political perspective?
Thank you very much. I will answer to your question, of course, as member of the European Parliament, but also as co-chair of the Sky and Space Intergroup in our house, in our European Parliament. You know that the Sky and Space Intergroup is gathering more than 100 members of our Parliament, and it's very important to push for different space policy, especially for Galileo, of course. And I think first that we should be proud of Galileo. It is a big European success, and we need to say it every day. Today we have billions of users worldwide, and it is very important for us to say it. That say, to answer directly to your question, our GNSS services face major challenges now. Of course, today we have a problem of security and resilience. Jamming and interference are now a concrete threat on European soil. It starts from Finland to Romania, of course, in Ukraine, and protecting GNSS services is now a strategic priority, and not just a technical issue. Here, as co-legislator of the European Parliament, I must regret that the Galileo Public Regulated Service, so-called PRS, is not fully operational today. If everything was well done, we should have all of our European military airplanes, boats, and soldiers using PRS today. It is not the case. And a robust and secure signal like PRS may have prevented recent incidents. For example, the plane of the president of the Commission, von der Leyen, in Bulgaria this summer. On the PRS, to finish, and to be sure that I am on time, I expect two things now. First, that the member states accelerate on the deployment of the user terminal for PRS. And second, I expect that the European Commission, my neighbor, and the USPA will commit to deliver high service levels on PRS. My understanding is that unlike the Galileo Open Service, there is not yet a guaranteed service level for the PRS. This is a problem if we want our military to use it, especially in the context of a conflict. I will maybe conclude by saying that, of course, we also need to think about future projects for our European navigation system, in particular LEO PNT. I'm sure that other speakers will talk about it. But we must also make sure that our existing systems fully deliver on their promises. And as a member of the European Parliament, of course, I will continue to keep the pressure on.
Yeah, we start very well with the pressure already, Paul. Yes, but seriously, security, resilience, sovereignty, this is something that is in the context of Galileo given. However, how the Commission is developing these capabilities going forward, also in line with other potential multi-layer GNSS applications.
Okay, on my side, I believe there are 4 important topics that need to be tackled. First of all, the first generation of Galileo, then the second generation, then interferences, and as a 4th topic, maybe LEO PNT, low Earth orbit positioning, navigation, and timing. First, on the first generation, It was said we have the best satellite navigation system in the world, used by half the world population, with excellent performances. And really, the most important thing we have to do today is to keep our users satisfied. You develop something, but afterwards you need to maintain and keep your performances. But it's not only that, because we are constantly improving the system. And I would invite you tomorrow at 2 o'clock, there is a small demonstration organized also by the colleagues of the Commission and USPA on our high accuracy service, on the open service navigation message authentication, and on the future service called emergency warning satellite service. So this is all for the first generation. But then the technology evolves. And thanks to the European Space Agency, we are developing the second generation satellites. And this is really a quantum leap, really. Maybe Javier will speak about that, but we really change dimension here. We already have 12 satellites in construction, and we are soon going to already order the next ones of this second generation. No interferences. Yes, the radio frequency spectrum is polluted by enemies, let's say, or by malicious, mal-intentioned people. So this is jamming, and this is spoofing. Spoofing, so they create signals which look like our signals, but which are not neither GPS signals nor Galileo signals. And there we already have a feature on Galileo, and this is the authentication. So this is a sort of electronic signature in the signals that allow you to make sure that the signals you are taking are coming from Galileo. So it's a good anti-spoofing service. Second thing, the public regulated service. Yes, we believe we are ready, but obviously we need to have a stamp good for the service given by our national security agencies, ensuring us that the system, PRS, is secure and will work in all conditions. It's not easy to obtain this accreditation, and we're working hard on that. The beauty of the public regulated service is that it comes with very good anti-jamming and anti-spoofing features. And then, because of those interferences, we believe it is so important to develop a service whereby we inform the users that there is interference in a certain region, over a certain city, etc. So we are proposing for the next multi-annual financial framework to have an RFI monitoring services, so that you would have a sort of a meteo map, but instead of showing rain or temperature, you would see where interferences are taking place. And then last, possibly important, objective is the low Earth orbit positioning, navigation and timing. There we are trying to define what missions could be given to this new layer, new satellite layer, and what benefits that could be brought by these features. We have to analyze with the European Space Agency the different possible architecture for that. And therefore, we also have to analyze what is the cost, because in the end, as for so many things, there is a cost-benefit analysis that you have to perform. And the beauty of all that is that the technology is already being worked on. So the day we'll take a decision on LEO PNT, our colleagues of the European Space Agency will be ready with the underlying technologies. So I could continue on resilience, security, and sovereignty, but I don't know if I still have some time.
No.
No, okay.
Thank you very much, Paul. Yeah, perfect fit. And we still have time to discuss it. So Javier, ESA was already mentioned. What is your view on how ESA is hands-on strengthening the resilience of the European GNSS to the activities that you do currently?
Yes, thank you. So a lot has been mentioned already. ESA is at the design core of the system. So we are very concerned by technology, by design features, and by making sure that our systems, our EU systems, have all the functionality and the performance that is necessary to respond to the needs. Now, the problem is that the needs have become more and more stringent over time. The threat scenarios and the risk profile from a security point of view has increased a lot over the past months and couple of years. But I think the good news is that we have designs which are prepared for that. A number of features have been mentioned already, but we have more in the pocket to come. So the first and utmost priority is to make sure that the services we are providing today are robust and can sustain interference, attacks, and so on. We have new features which are coming with PRS, extremely important. But I also want to mention e-GEOS. e-GEOS today is a system which is very important, in particular for civil aviation, as well as for Galileo, where we are working on the second generation, which is, as Paul was saying, a quantum leap in terms of technology, functionality, and performance, addressing security above all, for e-GEOS as well. And the next generation of e-GEOS will provide diversification with respect to the current system by incorporating Galileo into the e-GEOS solution. The key to robustness is diversification in all areas. We are looking at diversification of signals in the future by introducing new frequency bands. We are introducing diversification of services, diversification of systems which are available at user level. GNSS has to be complemented at user level also by other technologies. We will have applications in future in autonomous vehicles, which are safety of life. And those applications also need to combine the use of GNSS with other signals, other sensors. At ESA, we are working on incorporating new technologies for the future systems. For instance, optical technology. Optical will introduce a lot of robustness at the level of the systems, which will revert into more robustness at the level of the services. And in the long-term future, we also have plans to incorporate quantum technology on satellite navigation. And all of these, together with LEO PNT, which we can develop a bit later as well, which is diversification in terms of orbits, dynamics, frequency bands, which are going to be transmitted, new frequency bands with LEO PNT. All of these, I am convinced, will contribute to provide a robust EU GNSS solution for users, which are very demanding. Security users, but also safety of life and critical applications, of which there are many, and GNSS is at the core of all of them.
Yes, thank you very much, Javier. I think we covered a lot of areas already. Rolf, we heard about the importance to protect the service. You're doing not only protecting, but you are managing the service on a daily basis. So the ground segment has a very important role in that respect. But how important is your work in signal interference monitoring and detecting? Because I think it was already mentioned. But what do you do? What do you do hands-on?
Thank you, Daniela. As we are operating and maintaining the Galileo system from Oberpfaffenhofen, we have a very strong feeling to secure and protect the signal, which is in the end the result of our work. So what we did first as an internal project, we looked into jamming and spoofing from a space point of view. And what we can create is a worldwide map of areas where we have jamming and spoofing. And what we see there is really highly interesting, because there are areas which are maybe not well known to the common ground, and which are not detectable by other means like ADS-B, because there are no planes flying around. We can create a worldwide map, and we see hotspots like, for example, the frontier of Pakistan, where we discovered an incident, an area of spoofing when days before it came over the news. So I think from our perspective, that's something which is a knowledge which has to be distributed all over the world, which is a common good, or should be a common good, at least at a certain level of quality. Because when we talked to pilots, to airlines, they discover disturbance of the navigation signals every day. So it's important for the civil area. When we talk to the armed forces, they for sure have a strong interest, strategic interest, to see where the navigation signals are disturbed, are disrupted, and are changed. So for us, it's very important to take over these kind of let's say, security activities on board, not only to distribute the signals, but also to secure and to protect the signals worldwide as much as we can. We already heard from Mr. Grudler and from Paul Flamand that there are services, and also from Javier, there are services right now like OSNMA, like PRS, and upcoming services which make the signal more resilient and more valuable to the customer.
Yes, thank you very much. We come to the industry perspective, and Miguel, it will be interesting to hear. GMV is participating on a very different levels to the ecosystem. You work on the down and on the upstream. You cover the whole value chain. What is the key topics shaping the development of the European GNSS from the industry perspective, and how GMV contributes to them?
Okay, thank you, Daniela. Well, it's difficult for me to be the last one because I'm going to repeat many of the things that have been said already. But for me, when I think on the key topics or the key parameters that will define the future of the satellite navigation system for Europe, will be basically the service continuity. I think this is fundamental. The second one is the resilience that has been mentioned before. And I have to put a third one, I will say innovation. Basically, I mean, all these three concepts are interconnected, because basically you have a system that provides a good service continuity, but is not resilient. At the end, the users will not use it and will have a difficulty on that. On the other hand, if you do a lot of innovation, but you don't have a service continuity, you don't have the trust of the users of the institutions, so people will not use the system. So all these three concepts are very much interrelated. And the challenge for Europe is to develop the European satellite navigation system to think in the future, keeping in mind these three concepts. Again, service continuity, resilience, and innovation. It has been said already, I mean, if we think in the current satellite navigation systems, I think we should be proud. We should be very proud. I think the EGNOS and Galileo are performing very, very well. I mean, and they build the trust of the users because they have been providing predictable performances and continuity and high availability. With this is quite good. But it has been already mentioned before that the situation has changed. We are not facing today the same situation as the one we were facing 10 years ago. I mean, today when we talk about interference, jamming, or spoofing, this is not a theoretical risk. I mean, I remember when we were talking 10, 15 years ago, this is something that we were thinking, okay, this may happen. Today is not a theoretical risk. Today is an operational reality. I mean, it is happening every day. So today's things like resilience is a core requirement for the system. It's not anymore operational enhancement, something that is nice to have. So today is really, really fundamental. And this is a big challenge because the experience has changed dramatically. On top of that, there are new users which are incorporating, there are new applications, there are new markets. So we have to innovate. We have to provide new services and new things to the users. But also we have to do it in an intelligent manner. I mean, we cannot jeopardize, as I said, the service continuity or the resilience. So part of this innovation has to be also in the direction of improving the continuity of the service and also improving the resilience of the system, which is quite important. In this context, I think that LEO PNT, as has been mentioned before, is an important asset for Europe, because LEO PNT is not a replenishment of the current systems. It's just a complement that will enhance resilience, will enhance the flexibility of the system, and will add some innovation capacity. So I like always to mention LEO PNT as a kind of dynamic component for the European navigation system. It's something that where you can do things much faster, you can really upgrade or provide new services, new payloads. The lifetime of the satellite is shorter, so it's really bringing some good fitting well with the three components I was mentioning before.
Yes, thank you very much. We will come back to that. What I'm actually interested in the second round, that we also touch a little bit on the development of the market for LEO and PNT on the downstream side. And I know that you have good examples maybe to share or some. But coming back to Christoph, you started the panel with a very bold statement. If we look on the history of Galileo, what would you reflect towards the new developments? I mean, look back in order to be clever to look ahead.
Well, I will see maybe two lessons, but first of all, we need not to forget that at the beginning, Galileo was initially criticized, including by our allies from the United States. I remember that the US sent a letter to the European Commission asking not to create this new GNSS system, arguing that GPS was enough. And in the European Parliament, in different European institutions, some say, why do we need to spend so much money? Because GPS is here. It's good for us. It's the same problem as defense. Oh, why do we spend money on defense? We have the Americans. Today, Galileo is widely recognized as essential, and even non-European partners benefit from Galileo because multiple systems increase global resilience. And the US ask to have an access to our PRS. And if they have some problem with their GPS, and on the reverse, if we have problem with PRS, we can ask for GPS access. It is not a reality today, but it was something possible, and we used to talk together. But my first lesson of that this example shows digital and technological sovereignty requires political courage and long-term vision. Never forget that. Political courage and long-term vision. And the second idea for the future also is that Galileo proves that true sovereignty is built through collective European action. Collective European action. And less national level, more European vision. No single European country could have developed Galileo alone. This is a key lesson for future strategic infrastructures, including for secure communications. And we try to do it with IRIS². It's not GNSS, but it's also very important for secure telecommunication. Europe must avoid fragmentation on competing projects inside the Union. Strategic investment must be coordinated at EU level, not dispersed across parallel national initiatives. And what we achieve with Galileo, of course, needs to be the same for other technologies. That is a Galileo lesson, I can say.
Yes, thank you very much. That's always good to get reminded of Galileo, and all these gentlemen have been working on creating this whole program and now maintaining it. Paul, we heard that we need political courage, and we all hope that the political courage will continue also given the circumstances out there. And we also have the feeling that there is we're in the midst of a shift also in terms of approaching the sovereign PNT. What are your thoughts on that, and What elements are defining this shift in your view?
I would maybe contest the idea of a need for a paradigm shift.
Okay.
In terms of sovereignty. Because when Galileo was born, it was born to have sovereignty over satellite navigation. So it's already built in, if you like. We already, this idea of sovereignty is Galileo.
Correct.
And an example of that, all the infrastructure of Galileo, we need stations, antennas, centers all over the world. All those elements are located on EU-controlled territories, or Norwegian territories are included into that. So sovereignty built in. Obviously, we always have to make sure that we keep that sovereignty, and maybe nowadays that we reinforce it. And we can make use of several instruments there. One of them is just an example, is what we called foreign direct investments. We have to protect our industries being bought, swallowed by non-EU industries from non-EU countries. This is an instrument which is very practical. Every week we receive in the Commission an announcement that that company is going to be bought by that country. Is this okay or not? We screen all that and we give an advice on this. These kind of instruments are pretty important to ensure that we keep the sovereignty. It's an everyday work, this. But then in terms of paradigm shift, I would think we need to work on an image shift. And I'm just giving you an example. I was at a dinner last week and I spoke with a CEO of a company, a Belgian company, very active in harbor infrastructures, so in ports, you know, just taking goods from boats, etc. Okay, we exchanged, and I said I'm working on Galileo. Ah, Galileo, but what is it exactly, and when will it become operational? We've already 10 years. By the end of this year, we will be 10 years in operation. So I think the paradigm shift should be an image shift. We have to make sure that the European people know that Galileo is operational, that they are proud of this, and that message should not be brought only by the Commission, by ESA, by USPA. It's all industries, all people in this room, they have to annoncer la bonne parole, if you like. I wouldn't know how to phrase that in English, but really we have to make an effort to be recognized and be proud of what we do.
Yes, thank you very much. I think indeed that's a word of applause. Yes. And sorry? What?
He's the priest.
Oh, yes. That's good. Yes, please.
My name is Paul, and I'm coming from a very big family.
Yes.
I'm child number 6, so I'm Paul 6.
Okay. Wow. I think we have a scoop of this panel today. That is an amazing. But talking about preaching, I think what you said is extremely important also to expand the ecosystem that is here, to expand it not only, hopefully we will talk with Edison now geographically and in a minute, but also in terms of new domains, because this what the story that you just mentioned with this guy from the port is really painful for people who have been very active in promoting a European space program for a long time, including myself. Javier, we come back to real hands-on activities that ESA is doing in technology, proof of LEO PNT and the new architectures. I'm very excited that the launch of the first demonstration is scheduled. Will you be able to tell us a little bit more about that? And in this sense, to connect what Paul said, what ESA is doing in this sector should also go beyond our bubble in terms of awareness, because we have to build this uptake from potential LEO PNT if it comes in the form that is now planning. So what is your thought of that?
Yeah, so first I want to put this LEO PNT in the context. We are pursuing, together with the European Commission, a vision which we call it multi-layer vision. So we developed EGNOS many years ago. It is operational. Then we developed Galileo. Now we are starting to develop LEO PNT. The three have to be interconnected. And from a user perspective, they have to see it as one single system, the EU PNT system. And that really is a vision which, from a technical point of view, is very powerful. And it includes the notion of diversification as well, different signals, different systems, which altogether contribute to the service. Now, LEO PNT is in itself a very strong contribution to that. We have an ESA program, we have renamed it Celeste. Celeste is our LEO PNT development program, of which we have the in-orbit demonstration satellites, which are going to be launched this year, the first of them at the end of March. GMV and Thales have produced the first demonstration satellites. And this will be for the first time that Europe will be able to measure on ground satellite navigation signals at different frequency bands than L-band, going from UHF up to C-band. This is going to be really a breakthrough. I am convinced that we will see through those signals that it opens new ways of delivering satellite navigation, and it can contribute not only to resilience, but also to new services. We have at the ministerial conference in Bremen in November last year, a very strong boost of this LEO PNT Celeste initiative by our member states, whereby we are going to initiate a program, we call it in-orbit preparatory phase. And what is it preparing? It is preparing for the EU LEO PNT component, which we hope will be approved by the European Union in the 2028 timeframe as part of the next multi-annual financial framework. So this, we are preparing for a future EU LEO PNT operational component. And we have to use the next couple of years in order to test on ground the benefits from a service and operational point of view of the new frequency bands and also of the new features that LEO PNT is providing from the orbital dynamics point of view and from the point of view of the receiver. And I want to end by saying that we should not forget the receiver end. At the end of the day, the receiver is the one delivering the services. And in that context, we have to also look at how we integrate satellite navigation with telecommunication networks. Telecommunication networks, and in particular 6G in the future, and the non-terrestrial satellite component of that, and there I put IRIS² also in the picture. All of this is going to blend into providing more robust solutions for satellite navigation, and in ESA we are working on the R&D development component of that.
Yes, thank you very much, Javier. Before we go to Rolf, Paul, if you allow me, just a quick comment from your side. What Javier just mentioned, how, is the Commission expecting ESA to conclude the technical analysis and the demonstration, or is EU working in parallel in a way? I think that will be important for our audience to understand a little bit the world of institutional players.
No, we are fully coordinated between ESA and the Commission. On the Commission side, we are still trying to define the best mission parameters so that the things bring the most beneficial features possible. Nowadays, it looks like this LEO PNT component would be very useful for the public regulated service features. But still, we are working on that. We have not yet finalized. We are working with the member states on that, knowing that ESA, in the meantime, is preparing the technology for it.
Yeah, because the ministerial results on this topic has been very encouraging from the member states, right? So you also consider that as encouraging signs. And coming back to your point in the beginning about PRS and where are we there, it seems that this is still considered too in the mix. Yeah. But coming back to the ground segment, it's getting very complex, if I may say so. It's already now complex. I mean, what Javier just described, it will require a serious coordinated effort for the ground segment, right? And what is your view? How do you address that challenge?
Thank you. So first of all, Paul, thank you for the remark on Galileo, because it's getting a bit better. It's more well known, but it's really frustrating for the people in the control center to hear the question when it's getting operational, because we call ourselves an operational entity. The last thing we want to hear is when people don't believe what Galileo is, that we have to tell them it's the European GPS. So in the end, but it's getting better and better, and people are getting a good awareness of Galileo. What I'd like to point out as well is the complexity and the criticality of operations and the infrastructure we have. I think there's an increasing awareness that we have to take care about these assets. We have to take care about the security and defending the facilities, the structures we have, the hardware, the software, the IT, and last but not least, also the personnel. I think it's something which we experience is getting attacked every day. So speaking from Galileo, we know that we have a certain level of security, which is considered as, I think, high level of security in Europe, but as coming from governmental services, from DLR, I know that we have to expand also the ESA scientific missions to a certain level of security, which was never planned to have. So when you have a Earth observation mission, they never been supposed to be secured, things like that. Now they are going to be a critical infrastructure. They have to be secured. We have to secure antenna station, remote sites as well. I think that's important, and that's what we have to learn in Europe. One thing is technology, one thing is innovation, but the other thing is to keep the standard as we have and to look that it's not jeopardized by the outside world.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Miguel, we would like to close the loop a little bit now from the industrial point of view. You were just mentioned as one of the IUD for Leo PNT contractor, and also on the, as I mentioned, on the receiver side for PRS, you're also active. So it will be interesting for the audience, I guess, to get a bit of like a more plastical examples of what to do and how you see the development from here, given the complexity.
Okay, well, Javier already introduced very well the point. I mean, when we think about the navigation system, okay, we have the space component, but the components on ground are also very important and have to be considered, the receivers and also all the sensors which are integrated with to build the final applications. So for instance, Leo PNT Celeste, as I mentioned before, is a complement to the current navigation systems that will enhance performance and resilience. And this creates new applications. So for instance, if you think in the automotive sector is demanding every time, or there are applications that demands more and more high accuracy, demands robustness, demands assured positioning, more flexibility, etc. So Leo PNT will help to that, and also thinking in difficult environments like urban environments where normally the cars works. So this will facilitate new applications like autonomous driving assistance systems or new mobility services that could be provided. But of course, you have to put in the context also, it's very important to develop in parallel the receivers, and not only the receivers, but also all the sensors and all the applications which are related with. I think that this has been a lot of progress in the last years. I mean, we have contracts with some car manufacturers and where we are integrating GNSS with other sensors to provide in particular assured positioning, which is a key topic, together with resilience. And I think this is a big deal. PRS has been mentioned also before. I mean, PRS is coming, and we need to have receivers. We need to build receivers to be able to use PRS for different environments, no? And our company is working on that, so we are manufacturing receivers, and we hope to be ready for the coming months, coming years, where the signaling space will be ready. So I think we have a big challenge in front of us, as I mentioned before. I mean, we have to innovate, and we don't have to forget the users, the user requirements, and all the the user needs integrating the signals with the receivers and all the sensors on it.
Yes, thank you very much, Miguel. So first of all, thank you very much, gentlemen, for the good discussion. I think we covered more or less the topics that we wanted to share with the audience. I'm coming to Edison now. Thank you very much for your patience. It's again a pleasure to have you with us. Let me properly introduce you. You are special envoy for the BES islands, including Bonaire, one of them. The second island I cannot even pronounce. Maybe you could.
St. Eustatius.
Oh God, I have to come and visit you to be able to learn it. And Saba is the last one. Yeah, the 3 islands, right? So you are special envoy to the European Union and to the United Nations in economic development with Latin America and Caribbean. And you have been dealing with the space topics quite a lot and working also together with the European stakeholders. I think beyond thinking about your beaches and nice weather, it will be very interesting for us to hear a little bit what is your hands-on experience with European space technology, but also why it's important for you, strategically important for you to work with Europe on that.
Thank you very much, Daniela. It's for me also a pleasure being here today on this panel. First of all, the temperature in this room reminds me at home, but in a different attire. Let me put things in perspective. You mentioned the islands, Bonaire, St. Eustatius, and Saba. Those 3 islands I represent in the name of the Dutch Ministry of Interior and Kingdom Affairs. To give you the perspective, St. Eustatius and Saba are in the neighborhood of the Eastern Caribbean. That's more alongside neighboring islands like Saint Martin, for the French who know the area, and also like Puerto Rico are in the neighborhood. On the other hand, Bonaire lies like 30 to 40 kilometers in front of Venezuela. When people ask the Dutch which is the largest country bordering the Dutch kingdom, it's not Germany. It's Venezuela. And nowadays we know what's happening in this area, and that's also the reason that I want to have the attention of the European Union and also all the panelists who went ahead of me telling about the possibilities of the different satellite communications. When we speak nowadays about the new challenges, Daniela, they go beyond technology alone. Increasingly, they are about the trust, resilience, strategic presence, and this all in a changing global environment. In my part of the world, in Latin America and Greater Caribbean, European GNSS and satellite systems are not abstract or distant technologies. No, they are critical infrastructure. They guide aircraft and ships, support emergency response, protect coastlines, and keep societies connected when other systems fail. In this region, satellite services are experienced in very practical terms, and the reliability matters every day. That is why the objective should be clear. Europe must move beyond simply operating satellite systems globally and actively deploy the full spectrum of EU satellite systems, navigations, Earth observation, and also secure connectivity as trusted civilian government tools in Latin America and the Greater Caribbean. This is a region increasingly shaped by geopolitical tension, climate pressure, and strategic infrastructure choices. Satellite systems are no longer neutral. Decisions around navigation, Earth observation, and connectivity now involve questions of independency, survival, and long-term trust. Europe has a strong position in this environment, not because of size dominance, but because it offers something different, namely civilian governance, transparency, and reliability. In today's geopolitical climate, this difference matters. Let me briefly illustrate what this means in practice in our part of the world. For instance, search and rescue is a very strong starting point. In Latin America and the Caribbean, SAR operations are frequent, cross-border, and often complex. European GNSS-based search and rescue services are both humanitarian and strategic. They save lives and build corporations in the region. Earth observations plays a great role in the region. Sargassum, maybe known of many of you, is not only an environmental issue, but also an economic and social one, affecting tourism, fisheries, and coastal stability. Satellite data supports early detection and better decision-making in this matter. The same applies for extreme weather, where satellite-based monitoring supports early warning, preparedness and coordination, and sometimes preparedness for survival. The maritime and aviation dimension is central. Latin America and the Caribbean lying along major global shipping and aviation routes. Earth observation combined with GNSS strengthens maritime and aviation safety together with innovation and environmental protection in geopolitically sensitive maritime and aviation space. And finally, connectivity. In this region, satellite communications are often not a backup, but core infrastructure, especially during disasters. Secure connectivity is increasingly inseparable from GNSS resilience, and in this context, IRIS² offers a trusted civilian-governed option for secure communication and cybersecurity. Ladies and gentlemen, all of this needs a physical anchor. The Galileo sensor station in Bonaire plays exactly that role. It anchors Europe's satellite presence in the Greater Caribbean and shows how strategic autonomy translates into stability, transparency, and long-term commitment on the ground. To conclude, it is precisely this milestone, namely the opening of the Galileo station in Bonaire, that we will build upon in coming April with the conference titled EU Satellite Systems in Greater Caribbean, Navigating to the Future. Together with USPA, the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management, INTPA, NSO, Netherlands Space Organizations, and the local government, we organize this conference on the island. This conference will mark the transition from infrastructure to application, bringing together policymakers, industry, regional partners, and explore how EU satellite systems can be deployed as trusted infrastructure across the Greater Caribbean and Latin America. I warmly invite you to continue this conversation and the possibilities from this with us on the island of Bonaire in April. I thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think we feel all invited. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think you should book your flights, and then I think hope the panel will join. I guess, but seriously, Paul, maybe you want to start a quick maybe reflection on this type of developments for the European space program, and then I would like to invite you for like a last half a minute, last word, conclusion of this panel, if you don't mind, just to reflect a little bit on why is it so important to have the Galileo sensor.
Okay, I'm just looking at the time.
No, don't worry. I have that under control.
No, well, simply this is very welcome, this issue of installing a sensor station of Galileo in Bonaire. We needed some infrastructure in that part of the world, and effectively Bonaire is the Netherlands. So as I said earlier on, Galileo was developed in a way that all ground segment elements are placed on EU control territory. So it perfectly fits, and we are expecting that station to start becoming operational. Yeah.
Yeah, very good news. Fantastic. Also, thank you very much once again, Edison. So Christophe, maybe your last word. What is your conclusion out of? You had a bit of a worry that it's become too technical. I think the session was very clear on the messaging and very committed on the development of European GNSS. How do you feel from your perspective?
It was a very good session and a very good example in Bonaire on how Europe can help all the world with a very good technology. But maybe to conclude, I can say one word: money. Don't forget that if you want to fight against jamming, spoofing, if we want more secure system, if we want resilience, we need to have a very strong budget at the European level, of course, of national level, ministerial level for ESA, of course, all together. The union makes the strengths, but we need a lot of money. We for the next MFF, we ask for well, we have with defense 131 billion for defense and space, but inside it is impossible to do what we want to do if we do not have 50 to 60 billion euro for navigation, of course, but also observation, also telecommunication. It is crucial for us to have this money, and of course we will push. But if all the stakeholders involved, especially in the GNSS technology, are able to help us to find the best budget for space, I think it will be great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it is absolutely true. As we say, politics always win. So you can have the brightest idea. If you don't have politicians with you, you won't have money, and then you will not be able to develop something. Here, the advantage with satellite navigation is that we have shown for the last 10 years the excellence of what European engineers and people can achieve. So on that basis, we have a system that is being used. People are becoming dependent. So I'm kind of convinced that politicians will also be convinced that it is worth continuing injecting budget into satellite navigation.
Yeah, very encouraging words. Javier, is it a proof that they can collect money recently?
Yeah, of course, I will not contest the need for money. We need a lot of money. But I want to take this half a minute of my time to put the emphasis on industry. We need also a lot of industry. And I want to take this opportunity to thank all industries present in the room and working outside, also the operators, for the excellent work they do every day and every night to keep our systems running, to provide excellent services, and to prepare for the new technologies. We need to support industry through investments, but those investments have to be long-term sustainable. We need to give a perspective in the long term. Talking about vision, we are developing with the European Union a long-term vision for EU GNSS systems. And this is what the industry needs. And we have to pursue that vision with new components like LEO PNT, new technologies like optical in the future. This will take a lot of effort, and we need to build on the capacities and the innovation of industry in order to achieve those objectives. Without them, we go nowhere. So please keep on going.
Yes, thank you very much. And Rolf and Miguel, maybe really 30 seconds, please.
Okay, thank you. From my side, I think it's important to know that the navigation signals are an important resource we have to protect. We have to do what we can to protect it, to make it secure, and we have to see where the spots of jamming and spoofing worldwide are to protect the world.
Yes, and thank you very much for your initiative. Miguel?
Well, first I would like to thank Javier for the words, and also I would like to thank the European institutions and for all the support and for the brilliant ideas that they are having for the future of the evolution of the navigation systems. I mean, I think that we have to build on what we have. I mean, we have to be proud of Galileo and EGNOS. We have done a wonderful work. I think we have to be proud, so I support what Paul was saying. And we have to build on that to build the future and to be innovative. So new activities like LEO PNT, Celeste, OpStar, etc., are fundamental to keep the leadership of Europe and enhancing the resilience. I think that's fundamental.
Thank you very much. I would like to, before we start buying tickets to visit Edison, I would like to thank you very much for this good exchange. I think the audience can take some good information home, and please take advantage of having a lot of stakeholders, not only in the room, but this fantastic conference, and continue the discussion, and let's spread the word that Galileo is operational. I think we should start doing. Thank you very much. A big round of applause. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you. Maybe. Thank you very much.
Huh? No problem. I'm gonna go and just present all of you. What? Sit. Better to sit, so we don't waste time, because it's already a huge panel. It's also a huge panel. So. And then we do. The only change I received from your team
Okay, so thank you everybody for having joined us for this exciting panel. And I thank Daniela for her excellent moderation. Up next is going to be also a final panel before the lunch break today. And I'm going to welcome on the stage, can all the speakers for the next session please be so kind to make sure to be up front in the first row so we can get switched and already get seated in their places. Speakers for the next session, please take your seats. To everybody standing in the corner over there, for safety reasons, I have to say we cannot loiter, so please come on in. There's plenty of seats. Find a space. It's going to be an exciting session, I'm sure.
I will sit here, yeah. Sorry? That's going to be the order. Huh?
Ideally, yes.
Yeah, that I wasn't able to change, but that's the order now, you see? Simonetta, Mauro, Phil Salon, Eric, Milena, Rafal. Why it's written wrongly? Milenia. Ah, I'm really sorry. Lerario. Sorry? As you wish, to be honest, you know, you can even sit next to me, you can sit there, doesn't really matter, wherever. We're gonna serve the order while talking, but you can sit wherever you want.
Hello.
Hello, hello again.
Hello again, yes.
1 year later.
Exactly.
Hi, Mauro. Sorry, I texted you to make sure that everyone's arriving. Simonetta is also coming.
Okay, I think all of our speakers are with us on stage. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm very pleased to welcome our next panel on evolving needs and capabilities for Earth observation, moderated by our very own Tomas Dimitrov, Deputy Executive Director. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Do we have everyone? It's a big panel. Yeah. Okay, welcome everyone to the 18 European Space Conference Earth Observation session. As usual, we meet in the Silver Hall every year. We have some new faces though this time. It's my big pleasure to moderate this panel. I'll start with some short introduction, and then I will present all of our panelists today for their opening remarks, and then we'll move on to an open discussion. And please, for all the panelists, feel free to also interrupt and to make it a real discussion. Okay, so Earth observation is no longer a niche space activity, that's for sure. We see that it's an absolute major asset for all of us, for security, for environmental management, for sustainability, and for many, many other applications. But today I would like to outline the three major tendencies that we see. First, policy demand is accelerating and broadening. Climate monitoring, security, disaster response, food and water management, and maritime awareness are now tightly interlinked. Earth observation is increasingly expected not just to observe, but to support decisions, accountability, and strategic autonomy. Secondly, public investment is sending a strong signal. We've seen the outcomes of the ESA ministerial, which confirmed the renewed political and financial commitment to Earth observation as they call it, a strategic capability for Europe, linking the scientific excellence, operational continuity, and resilience objectives. At the same time, the European Union's Copernicus program is entering a new phase, one that must balance continuity with ambition, openness with security, and long-term public value with faster responsiveness, hopefully. Thirdly, the industrial investment landscape is also transforming. We're seeing a shift from individual missions to end-to-end capabilities, from satellites alone to integrated systems combining space, digital infrastructure, analytics, and services. Public programs increasingly rely on industrial partnerships, commercial data, and service-based models. But now, to the first strategic question, that's probably also the overall thematic for our panel. How do we align all of that? The policy priorities, the public investment, the industrial innovation, and ensuring that Earth observation remains a global strength. Well, I'm going to make a short presentation of our panelists, and then one by one, first for your opening remarks as a reaction to this intro. Very pleased to have today Ms. Simonetta Cheli, Director of Earth Observation, Head of ESRIN at ESA, Mauro Facchini, Head of Unit of the Earth Observation, DG DEFIS, European Commission, Theo Evans, Director General at EUMETSAT, Alain Arnaud, Head of Digital Ocean Program, Mercator Ocean International, Eric Even, Senior VP, Head of Space Digital at Airbus Defense and Space, Milena Lerario, Chief Executive Officer at e-GEOS, Rafal Modrzewski, Chief Executive Officer at ICEYE, and sorry for the pronunciation, and Mr. Roberto Mulatti, the Managing Director for Space at Serco Europe. So let's start. Simonetta, floor is yours.
Thank you. How do we align all these elements that you just mentioned, the policy dimension? So first of all, the European Space Agency, we work with all the partners here, the European, the industrial, the scientific ones. But one certain thing that leads us in the way we prepare, we propose the program, we implement them, is the notion of strategic autonomy of Europe. Strategic autonomy of Europe, that was also a fil rouge of our proposal for the ministerial, and that was quite successful in terms of outcome and support from member states in that respect. Strategic autonomy of Europe means what? It means that you keep your capabilities in terms of technological competence, that you promote innovation, and I think in the domain of Earth observation, we shouldn't be shy. Europe is collectively at the forefront of innovation, of competence, of capabilities, but not only. It's also at the forefront of having an infrastructure with the various satellite systems, the meteorological, the science mission, and Copernicus, which is really unique in terms of data volumes, in terms of continuity of data. And I think this leading role that Europe has in terms of providing support to common policy challenges like the one related to climate, resilience, and sustainability is certainly where we meet the development of the program and the proposals and the satellite building with the policy ambition. So that's an element which is important. The second one, I think we want to support overall the need to support the competitiveness of Europe. I think the Draghi report was mentioned already this morning a few times. The new plan for the MFF confirmed the need to guarantee and have a continuous support to the competitiveness role of companies of Europe in the worldwide context. And I think space is playing a role there, and I think Earth observation in the context of space is playing a role there. We still miss private investors. I mean, we have here some key industrial partners that will tell you all about it, but there is a very strong effort to try and increase overall spending in space and in Earth observation as well. Today we have the last ministry of 3.5 billion investments for the next 3 years. There are very good proposals and plans on the MFF for also Copernicus and complementary action in Earth observation and national missions as well. But there is a need to increase investments if we want to support competition. There is a need to have as much as possible complementary fund from the private sector. And the last domain, which I would like to mention here in this intro, is the resilience. It's a new domain of security, resilience, and support to defense challenges where really policy and priorities and challenges that come from a wider, I would say, geopolitical context and the role that Europe plays have also the need to have the support, the space solutions that come from Earth observation, among others, not just navigation and secure communication as well, to support those challenges. And that's why we have a new program in ESA. It's called the RSCO, which I have the privilege to manage, and I think there's a clear connection there between a proposal, which is a clear one on table of ministers, and policy needs and overall requirements that we have at European level.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to turn to Mauro, European Commission.
Thomas, thank you very much. So good morning, afternoon to everyone. No, I think that the introduction that you made is quite interesting. I would like to start from the point of view that the Commission decided to invest in space and to have space among the priorities, actually 20 years ago, Lisbon Treaty almost, is not just because of space. It's because space can be really used in several domains. So it really in support of policy demand. And we see after 20 years a lot of new legislation, acts, regulations, including Earth observation as a tool. And this is already showing that actually we went the right way in the sense that we build up a kind of confidence in what we are doing. And actually more and more, there is a trust on Earth observation as a tool that can be used in that respect. But in order to gain this trust, we have to ensure that actually the data that you generate are of the appropriate quality and in the long term. They have to be sustainable. And in order to be sustainable, one key element is funding. So you spoke about public funding. Public funding, I mean, has been along all this time. I think European Union has invested quite a lot of money in that respect. We share also some investment with European space agencies to build some of these satellites. And in cooperation with several entities around Europe, we are able really to build satellites, but also to have services. But we have to ensure that this is continued in the long term. As was mentioned by Commissioner Kubilius this morning, we have really the ambition in the new competitiveness fund to ensure this continuity of funding in the future, quite ambitious. So defense, space defense and security are included as 131 billions in the competitiveness fund. So I think at least from the point of view of the proposal of the Commission, the ambition is there. We hope that the European Parliament and the Member States that now receive the regulation will support that and will give us really the financial tools to continue in that respect. But it's not just public financing, it's not just we do. I think we trust a lot on industry, and as mentioned by Simonetta, competitiveness is also an important element. So we hope that what we do in Earth observation is also increasing the competitiveness of the European industry, in the sense that we trust and we actually buy data from this industry, we have contracts with them, but we hope that we help them also to build their capacity in order to be internationally competitive. So public, private has to go together in order really to continue to serve the policy drivers that we have.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for that introduction. And Mr. Evans.
Thank you.
Yeah, it works.
Thank you. So I mean, I'm answering this this point sort of quite particularly from the perspective of an operational organisation whose certainly their focus is on weather and climate related aspects. So I think it's broadly applicable to EO. I mean, what I see, and pardon the joke, is a perfect storm in terms of drivers for change in EO, and virtually about every aspect of it. Firstly, as you rightly said, there's a changing policy demand. The importance, for us, the importance of severe weather events is becoming increasingly significant. Using satellites to understand and model climate change is becoming increasingly important. The increased emphasis on defence and security, again, weather advice and information is absolutely critical, and I do mean critical for that endeavour. So in terms of the user end, there's a huge increase in interest. Then you look at the space segment with developments in new technology, use of constellations, new commercial organisations that are entering into the market and doing new things. That presents an opportunity for a huge amount of change, positive change. Then you look at the exploitation end of things. It's one area where the application of AI is not a bubble. AI is already completely changing weather forecasting and related applications. It's a huge transformation. So and what does this deliver? This delivers two things that are both individually challenging and collectively even more so. Massive change, and change that's unpredictable. And the challenge for all of us in this area is to manage those two things. You know, simply, I think, you know, we frankly need to find a way to be better at almost everything, but I think a particular issue for Europe is to strengthen collaboration and partnership across sectors and agency, public sector and private sector. That's easy to say, but I think the things that underpin that relate to standardization, coherence, integration of systems, making sure that interfaces are good, that there's interoperability, and I think that's really key for Europe's response to this challenge.
Thank you. Maybe Alain Arnaud from the Mercator Ocean to complement that intro.
Yeah, I don't have the knowledge of Phil about weather forecast, so I'm not sure it's a perfect storm, but we have an impressive wave arriving in front of us. So it's very important today. Well, just before at the Agora in the presentation, in which we have Commissioner Kubilius and Commissioner Cadiz present here, and I think it's just showing the bridge we are having now between really this space sector shown by the DG DEFIS and the DG Mare here. And I do think that today we have those new possibilities to improve our value chain. So of course AI is part of it, but not just AI, as the collaborations that we can have on the digital sectors are really helping on that. So we have to rethink all our chain of production, of how we get access to the data from the satellite data, how we distribute that, or we give value to those data in our field of activity, or we model those data to do some predictions. So this is really a game changer. And in front of such changes, we need to have to create trust, because AI, when you have any information generated by AI, it's always coming with this big question mark. Can we trust that? Is that just a pure fantasy from the computer, or is that really based on reliable information coming from our satellite, our in-situ data? And it's here that we need this collaboration between the different fields in the sector to be sure that we have trustable data coming from satellite, we have trustable validation data, we have trustable infrastructure, digital infrastructure to make that transit, trustable processing to be sure that the information derived from that is good, and this validation for the end user sector. So we are facing that today, that are a lot of changes, but I think we are first aware about that, so we can react and we can be prepared, and we are already doing that. And this example we may have seen downstairs of this digital twinning activity is one of the answer to that. It's really helping in bridging the different sectors in order to bring those answers to this need of information.
Thank you very much. And now we need to turn to the industry then. Mr. Evans.
Good morning. Now it's working. So I'd like to start with taking the word of Simonetta and of the Commissioner this morning, strategic autonomy. I think that the key word and question for the industry is, what is our role there? How do we contribute, and how do we shape that together? For me, one of the first elements was clearly, and Mauro, you mentioned that, funding and push from the state and the institutions. It is there, and we can only thank you for that, because it was a prerequisite. We asked it several times in those conferences, and now it is there. So on industry, and taking the Earth observation particularly, we see on the value chain 3 major angles. First one is working on the resolution, secondly on the latency, and the last one is the revisit. This triangle is working well together and must work in harmonious way together to ensure strategic autonomy. And it means we need to work on the entire value chain from that. And let me start for once, not by the space segment, by the ground. User terminals. The user interfaces, we call it being a digital one. We have our One Atlas portal in Airbus for that. Or the direct receiving stations are the way for our customer to access to data in a trustful way. Fully with you, Alain. The topic of reliable and trustful data is key. Working on this reliability together with AI is key. We need to master AI. We must not be mastered and driven by AI. I insist on that. We have to master that and not to be driven by a technology that we don't master. Then working continuously on our ground segments. And what we do on our industry is we continuously invest in extending our reach in our ground segment. You can call it additional antennas, working permanently on our digital interfaces to always improve. The continuous improvement makes a difference for our daily user. We continue to do that. And we have some breakthrough. on top of that. One of the breakthrough, you might have seen that this morning, now looking at the space segment, is we have announced the next investment called Pléiades Neo Next. And I'm very happy to announce that we will launch it on board on the Vega launcher early 28. So that's also an additional commitment in terms of heavy investment from the industry that we are happy to do, and that we know we can count also on the European institutions, ESA, the European Commission also, to be a large customer of this. And it's only a start. We will continue to successively invest all along the value chain and on very visible spacecraft program that we will also make as a service available to users.
Thank you very much. Turning to Milena from the e-GEOS.
Thank you. So it's working. For me, it's a bit aligned on what the colleagues have said so far, but what is important is that Earth observation is for the people on Earth. So what we need to help and support, and is what we are doing constantly, is to help the institution also to put the user needs back at the center of our offer. So I think that we need to lead the users on what is the future, but we need to listen to their voice. So it's very important that our solution, our products are related to answer to a practical question. We mentioned climate changes, emergency, maritime surveillance. It's all services that have a really practical impact on the life of the people on Earth. So this is very, very important. And as industry, I think we are here. Just mentioned an investment from Airbus, but Leonardo mentioned the constellation that will be launched in 28. So we are all investing privately on the space sector. However, I think it's very important, the technical frame, we all move in institution. Local institutions are very key, so not only the country, but the region by region are the ones that know exactly what is needed by the users there. We need to rely on their feedback on that. And if we mention tool like AI, and because for me it's a tool, not to enhance some solution and some capabilities, what is very important is the infrastructure, and the infrastructure that speaks with all the other partners that are included in this. I call it a journey. It's a really long journey. What we don't have for me is time. We are a bit, waiting to take some lead, some decision, and we need to speed up. Also because we talk about data, so what is important for us, our users, it's how fast we are to give back some response that is not just a nice map, is not just a bunch of pixels, but it's a really key insight on what they can rely, they can use them to take strategic decisions. So I think we need to run.
Thank you very much. Then I would like to invite Mr. Modrzewski from ICEYE. And correct me if I'm not pronouncing it correctly.
No, you're excellent actually at that, so no worries there. Good afternoon, everybody. I think that after all of those excellent comments, I will try to focus on something that perhaps I feel like it needs to be added. Look, when it comes to aligning a lot of people, and we have to align a lot of people on one single mission, we have to do two things. We have to realize that more has to be done, and I think everybody over here said, yes, we aren't yet done in developing our Earth observation capabilities. We've got a good start, but it's not the end. And ESA with their ERS program is pushing forward, and thank you, Simonetta, for leading the way. But the second bit that we have to align on is a bit of the sense of urgency. How quickly do we have to do it, and how much time do we have? Because I'm sure this is not the first debate in this room that we are asking ourselves the question, oh, how are we going to align everybody so that our Earth observation moves forward? Look, I don't think we have the time to wait another year to have another debate about this. I've been at this conference several years, and it's growing, and there is more and more people. And I don't think the reason why it's growing is because people believe that Earth observation is less important. I actually think that people believe the Earth observation is critical. If anything, I can tell you from my experience is that the war in Ukraine shows in a very clear way that space is necessary to European security, and autonomy in space is critical to European security. And I think that should just bring us all the level of urgency and the sense of urgency that we have to get done with these things. Now, I have to say today, as I arrived, I'm quite hopeful. As you guys probably have observed, After years of negotiations, the European Union has managed to sign the Mercator deal with Latin American countries. It got done quite quickly after those years of negotiations, and today as I was landing, I've learned that we have signed the trade deal with India after years of negotiations. I don't think those two things are a coincidence. The tariffs have caused a sense of urgency on the EU and made sure that we move fast. The same can happen in space, and the same thing should happen in space.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mulatti.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Good afternoon. As I said, it is quite difficult now at the end of the panel, you know, because I'm echoing most of the comment, but probably I would like to provide, you know, as industry, some more point of view. And it is basically, we are living in a world of changes that is rapidly, you know, creating also difficulties, and we don't know exactly where it is bringing. So I think, for example, the continuity is really an important one. So it is really, you know, on Earth observation, clearly we are the leader worldwide. It is undisputed ones. In the work that Simonetta is doing, but also, you know, in the work that with the European Commission, Copernicus is clearly a tremendous success, and I think this is a witness of a long-term commitment and investment that can be made. As Serco, we are basically an operator, so we are operating, you know, on Earth observation across Europe since decades. What we are seeing really key importance is the alignment between European institutions, international agencies, and government, in making sure that we have a clear governance to establish and to prioritize really the long-term commitment and also to foster the collaboration between the public and private sectors. And it is something that we are seeing, you know, we are saying several times, but it is really true. What we can see in terms of investment, the level of investment that are required on the infrastructure, on the operations, and on the research as well, is so significant that I don't think the industry alone can do it. And the public investment are really crucial in terms also of creating anchor tenancies, so creating, you know, the startup, the starting, the kickoff of the activities. And because we need to see now, I think, new services, new innovations, no, and bringing them to the market. This is what we call the commercialization, so we can really exploit the data and the huge investment that has been made in the past that continues. So I want to conclude saying that the real success, I think it is really the adoption of those new services, of those new capabilities by the end users and potentially by non-space expert users. No more, you know, they continue, of course, to get the data insight out of it, but I think it is the other industries, people that are not used to work on this one that will ensure, you know, the success and the long-term economic sustainability.
Thank you very much. Well, now we should open the sort of a debate. I picked up most of the key messages that you shared, and maybe we'll start with a bit on security and openness. And I would like to start with a question to Mauro in DG DEFIS, because Copernicus, as you mentioned, is here for more than 20 years now. So can Copernicus remain open by default while meeting new security and defense requirements, and by listening to all of this today?
So thank you for the question. The answer is not easy. So I think that everyone knows Copernicus as full open and free. It has been one of the big successes of Copernicus. This is the reason why it's so widely used, and actually there are so many applications, so many products that are generated, and also the downstream market can use all this data in order to produce value-added services. But I think it probably is not known to everyone that already today, not all the data are full open and free. There are some restrictions to the use of this data, and the use of the data are based practically on two restrictions. One are security restrictions, in case there are some elements that can be sensitive, in particular for security services like maritime, border surveillance, or support to external action. And also in the cases of emergency, there might be some products that cannot be delivered to everyone because it could be tricky if to give to the civil protections and to everyone the same products at the same time. Another limitation is based on some licensing. There are some data that we buy that we cannot pay licenses in order to give the data to everyone, so the distribution of that is limited. Indeed, I didn't mention in my introduction, but other people mentioned, ESA is working at ERS, but ERS is integrated in the EUGEOS, so the European governmental service, Earth observation governmental service, is something that we have started to plan since a couple of years now. It's part of the space strategy for security and defense of the European Union. And there we are entering fields of security and defense. Indeed, you can expect that in that area, the restriction of information will be even stronger. Not just the restriction, it's also the protection of that, in order to avoid that these data are going in the wrong hands, but at the same time, it's important to have an appropriate restriction in a way that the users, like defense ministries, really trust us. So we have really to demonstrate that the way in which the data are produced and generated are really responding to the information needed, but also the way this information is done. So indeed, still full open and free, but there will be some areas where security restriction will have to be reinforced.
Okay, I would say quite clear. Maybe then coming back to your Rafal, like how can then commercial SAR best complement Copernicus without duplicating it?
Look, I think that, and I'm sure Eric will comment on that too. I don't think the commercial industry has ever had the intention to copy Copernicus or do even a little bit of what Copernicus is doing. So maybe I will go back, and Eric actually has laid this out very well. So there's three elements that we very often focus on: resolution of imagery, latency of imagery, and revisit of constellations. And Copernicus is a fantastic system to map the Earth, and that's why we made the data open and free. But it's not a high resolution, it's not low latency, and it's not high revisit. And if you are fighting on a battlefield today, you need a high resolution image delivered to you quickly, and the next image has to come quickly. So you need high resolution, low latency, and high revisit. And so both of us have actually been focusing today on making sure that those type of capabilities are available through commercial users. And I do want to comment a little bit, because there was a statement over here that we are leading today globally. Look, when it comes to Copernicus, that is, in fact, the best open source set of imagery available. But when it comes to security constellations, we are actually behind. The Americans have hundreds of satellites up today that are used for exactly that. The Chinese actually have more, as far as we are aware. And we have a program that we are still debating, and it's fantastic that the EUGS is part of it. But we have to ask ourselves whether 2028 isn't a little bit late for it, right?
Thank you very much. But then let's move to Mr. Raven. And in particular, I'd be interested to know, like, what would be the right balance then between the patrimonial assets or the legacy and the managed service?
That's also a tricky and difficult question, because there is no obvious answers. First of all, just to rebound a second on Copernicus and then leading the way to ERS and EUGS. Copernicus is a fantastic success of all of us, and we need to be proud of that. It has been conceived at a time of peace, where accessibility to data, democratization of data, was absolutely a must to make this industry grow. Now we are obviously in a totally different world. No need to explain more in this round. So it means for ERS and EUGS, we need to take the security and the access to data in a very strict way. And that is what we start discussing also. What does it take to have very strict rules and access and avoid dissemination of data that you do not want to especially enemies? And it will be a key topic in the coming weeks and months to find the good way. Now coming to the question, patrimonial services. Is it something either patrimonial or services? Is it a conflict between both of them? I personally strongly believe it's not. You have certain assets that it's good for a state, in that case for a European Union, to own. Why? Could be a new technology, where it is best if you have a big player, an institutional player, taking part of the risk or the full risk of maturing a technology. That could be one. Sometimes you need the full capacity of a satellite. So it's good that you have part of it into your portfolio. And a lot of our home countries are doing the same. But then you need also the dynamism and the continuous investment of the service-based model. That you will scale as needed And I'm with you, Rafal. We need to be quicker on that. We need to scale quicker. We need to upgrade in a quicker way our satellites program, our ground segments as well, and the availability made to customers. All the chain has to dramatically accelerate if we want to face the 21st centuries. So again, to conclude, yes, some patrimonial satellite, and yes, certainly commercial providers, like some of us in this panel, helping, accelerating, scaling the program. And the key word at the end is interoperability. How do you make sure that all of that is working together? So we can debate at length. I'm sure, Tomas, you might have some question on that later on. What does it take to ensure interoperability, which is also, along with security, to my opinion, one of the biggest challenges we will face in ERS and EUGEOS.
Thank you very much. And I would like to turn to Mr. Mulatti from Serco on that, because we hear a lot about new missions and more data, more users. So what does it take to run EO programs reliably in a world of such density of missions? And
yeah, it's clearly we are seeing a Earth observation growing really fast, no? So a lot of data, a lot of missions, and we're just talking about tens of petabytes downloaded every single day. So, and the other point is the user community. User community is really expanding, not only in terms of volumes, but also in terms of variety, of interest. So I think, first of all, in order to manage all this kind of volumes, the manual data that we were using probably in the past is not anymore a viable solution. What we need really is solution that where the complexity is really managed under the cover and probably invisible to the users. And so we need absolutely to invest a little, even more on automated system, on workflow, and to fulfill what the users can achieve. I think of a challenge, we mentioned also integration. And I think in terms of different missions that we get, how do we combine data, for example, from different constellations? We're talking about Copernicus a lot. Right now we have Iride constellation in Italy. So how we can benefit on making the data from different sources working together without tailoring any single time, without reinventing the wheel all time. And it is not just data from Sentinel. We need probably solutions that are taking together data that are coming from different sources, not only satellites, but also drones, but even socio-economic statistics data and data from the ground, or from other places. This is really key, and why? This is why I think initiative like another European Commission, One Destination Earth, and that is done in collaboration with ESA, EUMETSAT, and the ESNWF, is really very important because we are operating the platform on behalf of ESA, and we are seeing a lot of interesting testing and validation of use cases and new innovative services done through the platform. So another element probably is interesting is the connection into domains. We're talking about interoperability at the satellite level, interoperability at different platform level, but also the capability to work together maybe with Galileo. No? So it is not any, we are not just observing the Earth, but we have a way now to execute, to act on specific activities. And for example, the return link services now that is receiving distress services and can help people that are under difficulties. This is really showing to the users and to the community and to the citizens the impact of long-term, commitment and how a space can really change the life of the people. And so I say that we talked about the manual processing, and I think that are leaving really the scene to other maybe buzzword, integration, interoperability, and certainly speed.
Thank you very much. And maybe for a reaction from Simonetta here, because maybe I can ask you in this way, where do you think we should invest most? AI, interoperability, or mission to service integration? Because they are saying that everything is important, but we need some priority list here.
Yes, we need a priority list, but clearly we need also an end-to-end program that serves these purposes. So on one side, what I can say is the ESA Earth observation package overall, the proposals that went to the ministerial, they have some element of innovation, of demonstration, not just on AI, but new innovative technologies which are demonstrated to the program, which are prepared through programs like FutureEO, so very highly subscribed. We also work on innovative mission, complex one like NGGM on gravity, but also Wyvern on wind profiles. And this is important not just for the scientific purpose of those missions, but also for industry to acquire technology competence, I would say, in this domain. Another element which is also balanced in the proposals that we got now to implement after November is the element of valorization of data sets available. So we have this huge component of a program called FutureEO, which is really having the aim of supporting policy implementation in the domain of climate, but also using at best all the, I would say, data sets that we have available from different sources, European missions, commercial missions, national missions, to provide products and services to a wider domain of application. So I don't want to say we do it all, but we are trying to balance in the priorities of the program proposal which we had put on the table of ministers these various elements, which are a component of demonstration of R&D, still at the core of what ESA does as a space agency, still with the support of industry that can increase the capacity, but at the same time develop new missions, do it with speed. For example, we have new fast mission implementation schemes. I think they're of Scout, science mission, which are developed in 3 years. Or I think of InCube mission, where we really try to aim at supporting industry competitiveness in terms of developing competence and opening market opportunities. And this is also done on the value-added sector with this Earth Action component and with what we do in InCube. The strategic also new dimension of digital twin. There is a strong over subscription to that program after the ministerial because of the strategic value of this domain. I mean, this is not a program about building satellites, it's a program where we try to really tailor platform development to users with the thematic application, and this is done also with EUMETSAT and ECMWF, and that's another new, I would say, strategic domain. So we try to somehow keeping our notion of, I would say, and rationale of being innovative and supporting the industry competitive, which it's at the basis of what we do in ESA, but to try to balance the various elements of priorities. And today, among the new priorities, we talked a lot about ERS. ERS-EO is a novelty. We need to accelerate the preparation of a future-led European Union program. We're working hand in hand with the DEFIS on preparing for e-GEOS, and that's also another new dimension. There we have to look at constellations. As Rafal said, repetitivity has to be increased, but in doing that, acceleration activity inside the ERS-EO, what is planned is to have a demonstration of technologies, is to have architecture studies in terms of looking at gaps of what needs to be done to have a real reactive system in terms of infrastructure. We look at proof of concept with the real users who know, like the SATSEN, who know really what are the needs of the users and do pre-operational demo products. And we also try to federate national capabilities through the cluster initiative and the pooling and sharing, because the interoperability element that Eric mentioned is a clearly essential one. We cannot, each one of us, continue to do its own infrastructure. So I'm not saying we want to do it all, but we really try to keep the right balance of the various elements when conceiving and implementing the program. And that will be the challenge in the next steps, because now we start to implement programs, and I think there's a lot of industry here. One of the challenges we have this year is to really spend through contractual tendering process about 3.5 billion euros into European industry, making sense with all these priorities we're just mentioning in the implementation of the programs.
Thank you very much. And maybe, Mauro, what are the Commission's non-negotiables then for the next phase? Continuity, expansion missions, security users, or uptake, or all of the above?
Yes, so I don't think that there are non-negotiable things, meaning that there are not things that we can keep it or leave it. But I think that everything that we do can indeed be treated in a different way. Continuity is fundamental. As I said in the beginning, we are serving now several policies, so there are a lot of users in that respect, so we have to ensure that there is a continuity of this data. There might be a different way in which we ensure this continuity. We have the Sentinels, we have the expansion missions. We might think if in the long run we need all these Sentinels, or there are ways that actually all these satellites are put together in a different way. Concerning the security users, indeed, as I said, the security users will increase. So we have already some areas, but the ambition with the Earth Observation Governmental Service that is to serve even new communities of users. First of all, to gain the trust of these, and then really to establish a relationship and to supplement what is already done today in that respect. And this is done not just building new capacities, but at the same time using those that are already existing. And as was mentioned by industry today, we cannot wait. Time is running. So I think we have to make the best use of today. There is, I think, 2 words, pooling and sharing, that are mentioned in several fora, where indeed will be the starting point for this governmental service, and at the same time to see if we can complement with something that will give additional information in that respect. And then about the uptake, indeed, one of the objectives that we had with Copernicus, it was really to foster a market in that respect. And we have to continue to have measures in order to make people understand what we are generating, how to use the data, how to make business out of that. And I think that this is getting into the mind, is getting into the market, and more we see this happening, and we have to push in that respect. So none of this can be left behind, but there might be different ways on how we want to implement them.
Okay, but then maybe let's hear a reaction from Milena, and a bit of a straightforward question. What blocks uptake today then? Procurement, trust validation, integration into workflows, or skills?
As been mentioned, integration, and I think it's very important on the fact that we must integrate this data from different constellations, because at the end of the day, we are back to the question that the user doesn't care what is in the background. They want the information, so how is happening is not really relevant. What is important is the speed and the quality of what we are giving, let's say, back to them. So for me, it's very important, and we sometimes forget it's about skills. We are facing a big challenge on the competencies. There are new competencies that are developing with, we mentioned AI or other tools that are quite new, maybe not for the expert, because now talking about AI is becoming a bit mainstream, but it's algorithms in a wide meaning. So it's very important that we prepare the new generation of engineer or whatever competencies needed to face these challenges. And for that, we need institutions, so university, schools, and so on. If it was for me, I would start at the kindergarten, but let's say university, to prepare this new generation, because I think that what is very, very difficult is that we have a big dream. This big dream is sustained, is becoming a program. The program is coming back to different countries, different industry, and then we look back and we say, okay, we don't have no people to do that because we miss some of these competencies. So we have to work on that. I would say rather their procurement or supply chain is important that we prepare these competencies. I'm not saying it's not done so far, but also there I will underline the need of a speed up.
No, thank you very much. I'd like to shift a bit the discussion now and turn to Mr. Evans for some excellent examples of how things are done on the interoperability front. Can you tell us more about how EUMETSAT is helping making this Copernicus plus meteorology plus ocean feel like one coherent capability to users? Hopefully give us a good example of interoperability.
I mean, I think generally, from my view, a lot of these things start with a user perspective, starting with a user requirement, what they want, what they need, what they want to see. We're very fortunate as an organisation that our governance, our structure is built around users. Our council members are all users. Many of them are scientists who are actually leading scientists involved in the application of our data. And I think the whole Another reason in which we're fortunate, the whole system of weather forecasting is one that synthesizes data from multiple sources. So if you want to look for a tremendous example of interoperability and sharing data from multiple areas, I think it's actually the weather forecasting domain. Now currently 90% of the data that goes into forecast models is satellite data, and it contributes about 70% of the accuracy. But the community is incredibly good at a number of things. It's incredibly good at working across the different Met services and agencies in Europe. It's getting better at working with the private sector, though I think there's a long way to go. And it's extremely good at identifying new data sources and incorporating them into the overall system. Now, in many cases, that can be new data sources from satellites, for example, the next generation satellites that we're currently launching, the likes of MTGS-1, which we announced the first image earlier. But it can also be completely unexpected sources of data. So AIS data from aircraft to track aircraft speed and position has been assimilated into models and has had a massive impact. The use of GNSS data and the atmospheric distortion of that wasn't seen probably 15 years ago, but people saw an opportunity and they were able to assimilate that into forecast models. So I think that is an excellent example of interoperability, but it's built on a common user requirement, a community that works very well across itself. I think there's a weakness potentially in the way it works with the private sector, but I think that's changing very rapidly.
Perfect, thanks a lot. And then I'm going to turn to Mr. Arnaud for this co-design with users, or as Mr. Evans was talking about, building it around users. How do we ensure then the Copernicus Marine service evolves with the maritime security needs and in general the blue economy needs, but in particular the maritime security? Because
okay, in fact, as I said before, it's always a problem of value chain. You start from your information and you finish with the user. So if you start from the top to the bottom, normally you may face some issues at some moment because what you deliver is not in line with what the user needs. So it's very important in this approach, as was said by Phil again, sorry, I'm always passing after Phil, but to start from the user needs. So in terms of maritime security, what is key is, and it was also mentioned with from all the satellite perspective before, is the latency, the accuracy of your data, the resolution, the revisit time. So it's something that today is not 100% aligned with what we do with the modeling of the ocean, because we run something that is much more on a regular basis, so not having the same requirements as maritime security. But things are changing. Things are changing because now, with the AI models, we have the possibility to run models on demand with a higher accuracy on specific areas. So we can fulfill the needs of marine security for those events. So for instance, you have an oil spill drifting somewhere. You can, of course, map that with the different satellites. So with higher frequency, less latency, but you can also explore the possible drift of this map with the different models we can provide here. So it's something on which we can now align the different piece of the puzzle, from the satellite acquisition, the modeling and the information on the ocean, and the drift, and the users that the marine security may have. So we see that things are evolving very fast with this idea of speed between the data acquisition and the use by the end user.
Thank you very much. I'll build on that point of speed of innovation, and I'll turn to Rafal. What policy changes then would most accelerate the European constellation deployment and the customer adoption?
Procurement of European constellation would accelerate the development of the European constellation by far the most. Look, you have asked this question on like, what do I think is, or it was a different person, which of the elements slows us down the most? And the truth is that today it is very often the procurement. I think Eric mentioned the interoperability. look, the industry would find a way to create interoperability between the assets if that was the requirement and request coming from the Commission. And I think it is obviously a request and we are being asked of that, but it's got to follow with an appropriate constellation design or ask or service ask or whatever means we are going to use in order to procure. And why the procurement is so important, look, I mean, obviously I run a company and it may sound like it's all about money, but it is a little bit about the procurement because you have to align the company's priorities in order for them to sit down, put their engineering resources down, and make sure that they combine their capabilities together. And the truth is that the best way to do it is to contract the industry together. And I think all of us, as we sit over here, we are actually talking the same thing, which is, look, we see a very urgent need to do significantly more in European space. And I think we all agree over here that no single company is going to do it alone. And we are, in fact, in agreement that we will be very happy to work together and create that interoperability in order to ensure that the European security is there. But it's not just there, but it's designed and built through sovereign assets that have been designed by our engineers and built over here. So I think the industry is ready. As long as we can speed up the procurement, we can make it happen.
Perfect. I'm not going to turn to Mauro immediately. I'm going to go back to Milena now. And I want to ask you, like, okay, maybe to build on that point, similar question, but how should the downstream blend with Copernicus with commercial sources, like optical, SAR, for example?
So we are back to maybe the concept of hybrid model, no? The idea to combine data. Again, it's not an easy combination because it's based on, again, interoperability, integration of data, and sometimes it's funny to say, but it's also about space in the sense of archiving. So there are a lot of limitation done by the infrastructure. So whatever is the model, in this case, the only one is this hybrid model, needs to be sustained by an infrastructure. And if we say infrastructure, we come back to investment. So it's all linked. And for me, as mentioned, I think was Roberto, on the fact that the customer cannot be only see commercial data from Copernicus. We have to integrate also some not free and open, while maybe as not me mentioned so far, but maybe it's has been mentioned, but not with this word on maintaining the security sovereignty of each country. So we need to work together while we maintain also this, and also to ensure our institution, all of us, that we are trustful partners also in each country. So for me, it's not easy to answer to this question on how this hybrid model needs to be built up, but for sure it's an important view on this topic that needs to be debated. And more than debate, it would be nice to have a practical solution on that. But it's the only way we can continue on this path. So we cannot think to work on the different constellation one by one, but we need to integrate them. But how to do it, I think it's the most important is a clear governance that is also helping us, industry institution, to make it happen.
Okay. Now I need to turn to Mauro. But I would like to shape the question more about how the market design should be according to you. So what would, let's say, a credible EU approach look like to deal with this capacity of the industry and still without crowding out innovation?
Thank you. So for the future, speaking about Copernicus, first of all, Sentinels will remain the backbone, but let's speak about the rest. So it's meaning how we interact with industry. Sometimes I think we have the tendency to confuse contributing missions with data buy. Data buy can be one mechanism of interaction with industry. I think that with industry we can even be more creative. Yes, indeed, we can buy the data, they are there, but we can also think, going to the extreme, also to buy some satellites. Rafal would be very happy about that. And or a co-design, maybe already plan in longer term how the satellites could be used. And this is something, or again, how to have hybrid constellations. So how to make the satellites that are coming from industry to work together with the Sentinels. Indeed, I think we have to be fast in order to try to see how this has to be done. In order to be fast in procurement, we have set up the dynamic purchasing system. That is a mechanism that we have put in place. that actually has been done on one side for existing, well-known companies, but at the same time for emerging companies, in order to really to make it happen faster. Maybe it will never be fast enough, we know, but at least we try to reduce a little bit the bureaucratic hurdles already to create some mechanism in order to go fast. And in this category 1, how many we have it? 17? 15. 50 new companies in category 1 that are actually getting there, and they are building on that in order to become operational. We hope that at least some of these will become successful and then come into the category 2 that are the well-established companies in Europe, as ICEYE, I think, and other companies did in the past. So, but this is to say that in investing in category 1, we still think in innovation. So meaning that actually we think that these new companies are there and have really to bring something new. We are not just looking just at optical or radar. We are really looking also something that is different. And for the future, in particular, in the frame of security service, also we would like to see, and we are analyzing that, how to introduce new technological capacities in that respect. I think that also in ERS we'll try to see that, also processing, artificial intelligence on board, all the things that for sure will make all this information much more relevant and competitive worldwide, because if not, indeed we'll lose the train and we'll still remain behind other countries like US or China.
Thank you very much. And Simonetta, maybe to build on that, how are we as a balance then developing future sensors with increasingly relying on commercial data and services?
So we do support also commercial, of course. We do it in various ways. One way is, of course, to speed up the procurement. We just talked about it. We have improved the time to contract in the last few years, and it's really a KPI inside the agency to support the speedy procurement processes. I mean, I can tell you that there was quite an improvement overall on the time to contract in ESA overall. In certain areas, like the one, for example, I think of Incubed, which is a dedicated program I manage to support commercial activities. It's 8 weeks, the average from the proposal to the contract, which is really essential as an element to support commercial perspective in the sector of EU and wider, I would say, at ESA. Second thing we do, we work, for example, with the Commission on this Copernicus contributing mission. The digital purchasing system has been, I would say, suggested strongly by the Commission to ESA. We were reticent in the beginning, and I must say it was a super success story of the way we've been working together to implement dedicated fund on Copernicus contributing mission. So another example of how to support commercial activities. And then, of course, I think there's another element which is pretty interesting, is that with some of our programs, we see the sector overall of value added, which is increasing in terms of economic perspective of the rate between 10–12% per year. So we have those figures from ERSC, and there again I would say there's quite a strong effort of ESA to try and support commercial perspective of companies. How do we do that? We do it with demonstration products. We do with products which they are demonstrated in terms of value and relevance and services inside some of our programs, but then we also have a very strong collaboration with clear potential longer-term users of those data and products. There I think we are really strengthening our teaming up with some key users. DG Klima and the Commission, DEFIS, via DEFIS with all the entrusted entities. So we are really trying in ESA to open doors with some demo of services and products to companies and to markets for really that active sector which is represented by the value-added sector overall in EU, in Europe. So there are various different ways. Also in Cubed, it's a mechanism. Of course, on the hardware, you have some success stories now in Europe on companies developing constellations and small sats, I would say. So I think we're getting better. The other thing we're trying to do there, and there I think there's still more to do, and really we are making a special effort this year with my colleague who is managing industrial activities, is to try and have a big conference on commercialization and see how we can attract more private capital into the space domain. And this is really an effort that we've done in the past years. I think we have also more than 70 partner arrangements with venture capital, but it's certainly not enough. We see a potential strong contribution of that private sector overall, and we're trying to engage that in the next steps of our implementation of programs.
Thank you very much. I'll bring back our conversation again to technical capabilities, and that's why I want to turn to you, Mr. Riven. So what's the most important for the end user today? How do you balance the different technical capabilities?
That's another good one. Coming back to the triangle, the very high-end resolution is a must. So we see that in theater of operations. Again, no need to tell you more. The demand for very high resolution data is so high as it has never been. And that is why we took also the bold decision to invest further. So that is a key topic, that is a prerequisite, that is a very strong foundations we have in common in Europe. We need to protect it, and we must expand it. Then revisit. Revisit is a kind of new paradigm. We've mentioned that in this panel. It's good to have a very high resolution data, but sometimes it's enough to have something with less resolution, but to have it quicker, hence the question of latency. So it's something also where we are working on, and we need certainly in Europe to improve. Again, there is a very high dynamism in the industry, supported by a lot of governments and institutions, so that's good, and technically that is where we need to put the emphasis. And finally, it's the entire chain. If you work on a part of a chain and you ignore all what's happening on the ground segment and on the user interface, if you ignore what AI can bring to you, you will lose the battle. So we need to work on the total value chain from, again, the spacecraft till to the very end user, and using that and ensuring that the end user is getting the right data. And I think the topic of trustful data is, I would say here, a concern. We see a lot of things happening on internet, on social media. We need to tackle this topic in an accelerated way and do more there.
Thank you very much. And I would like to turn to Mr. Mulatti so that he can tell us, like, where is the role of the integrators to help shift this public Earth observation into a service level delivery?
Yeah, I think when we have to deliver, Earth observation as a true services, I think what is really important is something that is mentioned before. It is the end-to-end view. So what we are seeing, our experience is that fragmented contracts, disconnected procurement, we are back to procurement, is basically creating some challenging in measuring and providing performance consistently. So what we are seeing instead is that an end-to-end integrated operational approach in some ways certainly create some sort of accountability, enhanced accountability within the operators. And I've seen this and really welcome some shift into that one that has been done by the decision of ESA on a couple of examples. The biomass and healthcare missions, where they are basically issue one single tender for the whole PDGS operation. So this is really important, because at the end of the day, the prime of the contract then have the opportunity to understand within the ecosystem which are the best partner to fulfill specific roles, and has the also, of course, the duties to integrate them seamlessly, and to standardize, maybe to create a standardization, to create a compliance, but at the end of the day also to prepare and be ready for the future evolution of the services. So I think this is really key, and it is really welcome, this type of approach. At the same time, this shift is also creating advantages in the fine service level agreement. And through KPI, very detailed KPI, we talked about latency, accuracy, and uptime maybe. So it is really important, because you have the full control of the chain, and therefore you can define and identify with the customer what are really the KPI that matters to the users, and provide them where they are needed and when they are needed in full transparencies. one last comment is about, we are talking about the insight from the data, and this is really key. Now, if we wanted to make the user feeling confident, and you mentioned about that a little bit, is also the traceability. So this is where probably we are not at the level where we would like to be. We need to be sure that everything that has been processed through the value chain of space is trusted and can be, can provide, the reliability to the users to making sure that the final decision that will be made on those data are correct.
And maybe on the topic of trust and traceability, I'll turn to you, Mr. Arnaud, for a good, I think, use case or an example of what standards of validation steps are needed so ocean indicators can be used in policy and compliance contexts.
Yeah, in fact, yes, you're fully right. If we don't create this trust in our indicators, we cannot derive from that required policies to preserve our environment, and ocean is on the first line for that. So this is again a complete chain, value chain. We need to make trustable here. So through those standards, through those validation process. You need to trust the methodology for that is developed, and you need to have, in a way, someone that is in charge of this trustability. It's true that for ocean we are a bit behind compared to the weather organization. On that we have less standardization process. It's important for us, for instance, at Mercator Ocean to pursue our change in the organization, in becoming an integral organization, because we need to create the trust for our member states in the data they receive from us. So it's very important here to have this complete chain with, let's say, an entrusted body in order to give those, let's say, first of all, to create those standards, to make sure that they are applied, to have a value chain that is following all those standards. So including the part coming from space. So like, in the ISO process, we need to be sure that you have a complete trust in the full value chain. And at the end of that, you need to be sure that, and it's a case of the indicators that you mentioned, that those information are being used with this full trust for the different bodies using that. So could be member state, could be the European Commission, and it's where we need really to create this space of trust here for all the people involved. That so through collaboration, through standards, but really through those interactions that will develop this trust and a better use of this information.
Thank you very much. Then I'll turn to Mr. Evans for another. I don't know where there is a. Sorry. For another good example from satellites to services, and I think that's very interesting for me, at least as a normal citizen, of how with the MTGS1 hosting IRS and Copernicus Sentinel-4 UVN, what changes for the downstream users in air quality and nowcasting you're envisaging?
I'll try and do a very quick answer for something that requires a very long answer. I mean, look,
we have time. Don't worry.
Really? Oh, okay.
What a moderator never says. No?
Look, the current generation, next generation of satellites we're launching, of which MTGS1 is a really good example, is genuinely a revolution, and there's huge credit for everyone involved with that, for ESA, for industry in generating that. But it is a massive change. MTGS1 is a huge revolution. And as I said before, satellites are just massively important and underpin weather forecasts, air quality forecasts, and generate a massive amount of benefit to Europe, 60 billion a year, and that's ignoring the impact they have on saving lives and ignoring the impact they have on defence. So it's massively important. As I said before, we have an advantage that the users are built into the structure of the organisation and its governance. So these systems have been developed and evolved with the user requirement in mind right from the start, and also an end-to-end production view, which I think is really important. And we're lucky that it's a bit easier for us to do that than in some cases. The MTGS1 is a satellite that provides measurements through the depth of the atmosphere evolving over time, so it's four-dimensional information. Its particular value is to identify the emergence of the sort of atmospheric instability that causes the intense storms that destroy communities. They're the most impactful, most damaging, but they're also the hardest to forecast. So the rapid updates of imagery is crucial to provide warnings as early as possible. And I think towards the end of this year, we'll start to see that coming through. Better warnings, more immediate. In terms of MTGS1 also provides information about atmospheric composition, and we're also flying Sentinel-4 from the Copernicus program on that satellite. Good example of European cooperation, which provides information about atmospheric composition. Again, air quality services will improve. And you have to recognize that, just as a particular example, the health burden of air quality on Europe is massive. In 2023, potentially over 200,000 excess deaths caused by air quality incidents. It flies below the radar, and these instruments will hopefully have a really significant impact on the quality of air quality forecasts.
Thank you very much. And I'll pose a small challenge to all of our panelists regarding the fact that we're a bit late. We started late as well. If it's possible for just 30 seconds to say what's one thing would you like to see happening and that we can be discussing next year at the same time on the same panel. I will start with you because you seem ready.
It's unfair. Look, in 1 year, I like to sit there to have seen a massive acceleration in our program, starting with ERS paving the way for EUGS, that we have a clear European team to master that, because I think we will only master this program as a bundling, as an alliance of industry, tackling this topic together. So, and not to say my dream, but I really hope in 1 year, Tomas, you can quote me in a year, we sit here and we have put that on a good way, with a clear view on what we want to develop, by when, a good mix between own infrastructure and service-based model. So, Mauro and Simonetta, no pressure.
Milena, please.
So I will a bit copy, but one European champion for sure, with a clear frame of where we go and how we want to go there. Speed, agility. So to talk about not what we would like to do, but how far already we came to. And maybe the creation of one European university lab, let's call it as you like to do, with the new competencies that will help us to do so. And tons of other things, but I think it's not easy, because they cannot see it, but we see this,
And I'll ask
glamping, so it's not easy to talk on that. But it's very important also to close is we gather information for the users, we try to build on what they are their needs. What is missing for me is to come back to them to ensure that they are aware of what we can offer, and if they're using the offer of the industry and the institution at the right extent. I think this is a bit missing today.
Thank you. I know that one European champion. Is there one thing?
One thing, I think not to have, let's say, this sense of urgency like this red light. No, really that the situation next year will enable us to have this kind of discussion, not too much pressure, avoiding that. And especially keeping in mind that we need also, beside of all this defense and security talk, to preserve the partner environment. That is one of the key aspects also of the ESA mission, the Copernicus mission. So that it's very important to let's say, to be aware about what's happening in the immediate term, but also in the longer term, and to have solutions for that.
Thank you. Mauro?
Yes, so I think every year we say that Copernicus is the best Earth observation program in the world. I would like that in some years' time we'll not say we used to be. So I think that we will continue to say we are the best one, and for that we have to put a lot of energy. And then, following what Eric said, I think that EUGS is to be part of that, of the evolution. I can tell you, we have very good ideas, we put a lot of energy, but we need a lot of support from everyone, because there are also we find sometimes some hurdles that are very well understood, but I think we really put our energy in order to make it happen.
I like this winner's attitude. Rafal.
Look, I don't think it'll be a surprise to anybody, but I would like to see the European constellation being deployed, not being discussed.
Simonetta.
Clear evidence of this reinforced collaboration between ESA and the Commission, no matter in facts, in continuity of Copernicus in the MFF, complementing the funds that we have at ESA, and at the same time, real acceleration of this new dimension with the ERS and e-GEOS, really consistent, coherent, and not just talking about it, but with all what it's involved in that. So for me, the strengthening of our collaboration is part of the plan with clear facts and a real hope that it will materialize, and it will.
Thank you so much. Roberto.
Yeah, I think what I would like to see one here is basically, you know, some emerging technology like AI really transforming the way we are doing our business. And making maybe, you know, the solution and the new service is so easy and so, you know, value that they will be really, you know, used by citizens, but also by public, you know, in some way, public service company, energy utilities, infrastructure management, energy, transportation, etc. This is the dream.
Thank you very much.
There's a quote that comes from Africa that I sometimes like to use, which is, alone we can go fast, and together we can go far. We need to go far and we need to go fast. So some sign that we're learning how to move fast together, because we need to do both, and if we don't do both, we're in trouble.
Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for our panelists. And now it's time for a lunch break. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tomas.
Hope you enjoyed.
EID.